the idea of the Center for Creative and Festival Arts. I like to start with that because there are two beginnings. Right? There's one that I was responsible for, and there's another that Pattisman was responsible for. It's that convergence, right, that brought the thing into being. The one that I was responsible for really began when I was in Jamaica, at the Jamaica School of Drama, right? Teaching there. I was in charge of the directing program at Jamaica School of Drama. When I came back from Jamaica, it struck me that at some point we would have a creative arts center. The university, right? There was one in Jamaica. There was Jamaica also had a school outside of the thing. And Barbados was always talking about one. But I felt that Trinidad would be next, and I simply waited for that. And formulated in my own head, having worked in Jamaica, what shape this could take. Pattisman, Dr. Pattisman, who was the head of the English department in 1985 or 1986, she proposed there was an opening, a salary that became available in the faculty, and she proposed to the faculty that a creative arts center be established. It was just a fact, it was just a salary, one salary at the time, and a little extra, I guess. And that was used to outfit the building that housed, on Augustine Street, that housed the first Center for Creative and Festival Arts. It was called a unit. It was a unit of the English department. So it was through her that was established, and I was eventually recruited. All right? I was interviewed amongst several other people, and I was the one who was selected to lead this initiative. So when I say that it came from the experience of working in Jamaica, I would say that the ideas that informed what was set up, the opportunity that was created by Pattisman and the English department, is what I brought from Jamaica. And those ideas included one, that the arts, we started with theatre, and of course the other arts would come along, but the arts had to be treated with a certain degree of respect that I didn't see. That I didn't see frequently, let's put it that way, in Trinidad. The scene in Trinidad at the time, bear in mind, was one, in terms of theatre, one that Trinidad Theatre Workshop was struggling to get a place of its own. That was an ongoing struggle for years, right? And they were denied that. Trinidad Theatre Workshop was the finest theatre group in the Caribbean. And yet, in Trinidad here, they could not get a house, they don't get a place. That was the part of the cultural and political scene at the time. Also, that year or year before that, Birdsong was hustled out of campus. Right? Birdsong that had been established by students, okay, had been evicted from the campus. So we had that kind of situation. So I felt that in starting a creative arts center in the first place, you had to say that this is a special place. That way the arts have got to be treated with respect, got to be taken seriously. That was one thing, as it was in Jamaica. Right? Second thing is that it had to be, again, coming out of the Jamaican experience, community-based. Right? Given the problems that we had in Trinidad, I refer to those arts, there was a notion, of course, that the university was a kind of ivory tower, very exclusive. It had no real connections with the rest of the society, in terms of the arts in particular, we're talking about now, because we had done very little for the arts. There was a summer school, as they called it, that was run by extramural, quite successfully, right? But it did not grow. It remained a 6-week or 4-week or whatever it was event during the long vacation, and that was it. There was no outcome really of it that showed the development. It was important for the arts to be seen and accepted and accommodated at the top academic level in the country. So that people coming into that program could then go right up to the top, okay, academically. So that was one thing. But it was also important for the university as a way of showing that it cared about the arts, right? In a way that was not simply seasonal. Okay, so that was the nexus between the two. Just following up on the business about community and opening it up, right? So it was community based, and it had to be open to all groups in the community, right? So although we had just one salary at a time, and just enough for a secretary or something, right? Assistant. In terms of the use of the center had to be viewed as a community center. So people would come in. We invited people to do workshops. We had a rehearsal space that was available for choirs, right? We had a dance program. We had a children's program that we started a year after, called the Discovery Camp, and I understand it's still going. And that was started like the year after we opened, in 87 or thereabouts. There are all kinds of activities, yeah? So we drew on the community, so people, in other words, we broke down this notion that the university is a kind of exclusive place and made it communal, right, and accessible to people all over. It was different. There was a point of similarity in the sense that there was one of the courses that we did called Caribbean Lab. And the title of that program is what we used at the School of Drama in Jamaica. But the content was different. Because whereas in Jamaica it was an experiment, it was a School of Drama, it was an experiment with different theatre forms and so on. What we did in Trinidad was that we exposed the students to the culture of the place, right? So we brought in and we took them to, because we are a multi-ethnic society, much more diverse than Jamaica. So they had to be exposed to the indigenous culture, right? We took them on field trips in the forest so they could learn and understand the very environment that we live in and take for granted. What are the names of the trees that we have outside, and so on, right? That kind of knowledge, grounding knowledge. And then of course the cultural diversity. So in Hinduism we had Rawle coming in and talking to them. We took them to Hussein, all those kinds of things. Yes, Carnival. These were the foundations. So that people coming in, so it was different in the sense that it was not art specific in the way reality programs in Jamaica is established, right? It was cultural education, at least in that. And then we moved from there now, from that program, which everybody did, into the specifics of theatre. We didn't have, until later on, an acting program. It was more theatre education, right? How theatre could be used. There was some production, and so of course, production was always critical. But it was more about the application of theatre to society. Very important changes. I mean, the first and the most obvious one, I think, is the role of the arts and theatre in particular in the secondary school, in the education system. When we started, it wasn't there. There was art in school, and there was some degree of music, but not really taking it up to CXC, right? But with the program that we started, and of course with CXC, of course, it's you need input from all over the region, and the initiative toward having the drama at CSEC level came from Jamaica, right? But we were part of it too. We became part in the sense of trying, we were asked to redesign, let's put it that way, the curriculum that had been offered. And we did that, right? So CSEC, the fact that we have teachers all over, when we train people now coming out of creative arts, they can apply to the education ministry and get jobs. So there's that. That's a big change. Mm-hmm. Secondly, our people, what I have seen is that coming out of the kind of education that they were exposed to at creative arts. They are much more culturally aware of who they are and how they could, the knowledge about the place that we live in, and also how they can be part of the development of that. So you have people who are, working in other institutions, and you're seeing this work, this kind of work, this quality of work coming out from that. Some of them right now are leaders. They are the ones at the forefront of other institutions in the region. In Jamaica, we have Marvin George and Camille Comina. Also in Jamaica, we have Antia from St. Lucia, who's leading the department there in terms of the business of the arts. Right? We have Michelle Cox in Barbados, right? Who's heading the program at the community center there, right? I'm also doing, of course, the graduate work and so on. And we have Kentilia Louis in St. Lucia. So these are all people who are at the forefront of theatre education in those institutions, and they were trained by us. Yeah, and it's not, and the fact is that it's the same quality, right? And direction that they're taking, and what is that direction? It's really about transformation in the sense of educating people about who we are, Caribbean education, or indigenous education. Right? That's the priority, right? That you take away from them. Because it's possible, as you know, to train in the arts, and which was the problem with the CXC syllabus when it first came, before it hit the thing, when we saw the draft, to train people in the arts, and it's just about the art itself, right? Without the sense of the art in context, right? So you're training people then to perform in America or to perform in the UK. What's the point of that? You have to know where you are, who you are, and what your own resources are in order to build a civilization. That's the thing. I mean, one of the productions, again, when I talk about community in the center, the community wasn't only that we were bringing people, inviting people from outside in, from other communities into the creative arts. We were creating a community within the creative arts, right? And that community involved the students, it involved the faculty, it involved the clerical staff, it involved all the support staff that we had. And in some productions, we showed that. Right? So remember Shani? Shani took part in one of the shows that we had. Right? Right? And where we found talent. Right? Talent is not restricted to people with, who are studying the course. We look at people, you see who you are. I remember Shani was also modeling in the art program. Yeah? So it's just giving people a sense of themselves. Once they're willing to come into the thing, we make it open. Right? There are no boundaries in terms of the arts. Yeah, we didn't have that problem really, because, and up to now, we have this program. We have students from different universities in the States and so on come to Trinidad. I can't remember what they called it, festival program or something like that. We had it. And that was always one of the points. That they come here and they're always surprised. The black students are always surprised and shocked. There's a culture shock for them. And why? It is because we've always had a black majority. That's one thing. Right? In the Caribbean, there's been a black majority. So you're accustomed to seeing one another and so on, right? We're not confined, we're not constricted in any way. Right? And then the second thing, unlike some other Caribbean countries, we do not depend on tourism. So that our relationships with visitors are just normal. We just come, we treat you like anybody else. We don't provide things and we're not subservient. Right? And I'm not saying that the subservience sometimes is, of course, is a professional stance that you've got to take because there's a thing that although, it seems to be subservient, but we are not that. I see that with a quote a Chinese guy, the Chinese when they're working here, they come in the thing, and I see one of the Chinese group, it's a group of workers, ordinary workers, a group ahead of him, and he's walking behind, and he's trying to work like Trinidad, and I could see it. Right? So yeah, there's that. And this is in some ways this is the tragedy of where we are now. Right? Of going politically, going right back to America. right? I mean, if it's one thing you have to say in this is where I stand, right? Of politically going back to America, taking us back, right? We are people who had, when the Americans were here in the 1940s, down in Carnage and places like that, Carnage and St. Louis, we used to be fighting and beating Americans, American sailors, I'm telling you, right? They used to be fighting over women and so on, right? You read the Boise Sing story, you will get some episodes in that of what used to happen at that time, right? So we are no, they were here and then we sent them out, we chased them out, right? The base was released, okay, in the 1960s. As part of the old federal campaign and so on. Right? And now you've been put right back in the arms of these people. You know, that's the tragedy. Absence of any sense of history in this place. And little that you know, you're trying to destroy. Right? That's not a problem with graduates. It's a problem in society. You know, and what there is. You know, and if you talk about what is supposed to be developed from here, right? So you've trained all these people. Then the economy has got to open up. We talk about diversifying the economy, we talk about the creative economy. No, they're calling it the orange economy. Next thing they might be calling it the yellow economy or something. I don't know, they change any color, but in India there's no change. The colors change, and the terminology. You know, the point is, what do you do with your talent? Right? Now, a lot of people, of course, go abroad. That's becoming less, there are few opportunities now for that. So it's got to be done here. You build the economy here. But there are no ideas as to how that could be done. I know. I have ideas of how it could be done. Right? But that's the kind of thing. I mean, what I do, one of the things that I do, and why I keep Cambole, which is my company, going, and graduates from the same creative arts and other places and so on are part of that. One of the reasons why I keep that going is to show an example and to offer an opportunity. It's real rough, you know, because you don't get sponsorship and all the rest of it. You have to fight every time for every production that you do. But you keep it going, and it's large. You have a band, you've got, you know, choreographer, director, all the rest of it. You know, a big cast. But you keep it going because it's showing people what could be possible outside of the education system. You know, once you're trained, right? There's a company that you could join and you could be part of, a production you could be part of that measures your talent. You know, that you've got to be, it gives you a standard that you can aspire toward, right? And be part of. So that's the kind of thing that we need to be doing. We have a theatre arts company, an official theatre arts company in Trinidad. And it employs a few people, they're salaried and so on, and very good. And they do good work. But there is no, when I say they do good work, the quality of the work is good. But you don't get a sense that there's any direction, that they're going anywhere. You know? So it's a problem. You seem to be turning people out, and then there's no offer, there's nothing for them to do. One of the girls, a dancer that I supervised for her festival project, she has a school going, and that itself is entrepreneurial, private school. She's now in Samoa. You know, and she's been doing that for a number of years, right? So, question about entrepreneurship is why we started. That's why we started the postgrad program. It's a postgrad certificate, ACEM, to train those graduates as to how to manage your own business. Right? That was the idea with ACEM. So you come out of the arts program in any of the fields, right? And you want to establish a business, you go into ACEM. And for that year we give you training and we give you an opportunity to develop the project that you want to do, right? One of the things about growth, because we're all small countries, you know, I think that we need to do more to connect interinstitutionally, right? What's going on with UTT and creative arts, for instance, you know, connections can be made there. And we have people like Michael Sherry, who's a graduate from us and who's over there. All the people, most of the people, I think, in the theatre arts company are graduates of the center. And the same names that I talked about abroad, when I say abroad, in the region, in Jamaica School of Drama, Marvin and Camille, in Barbados, and St. Lucia and so on. These are all people, because of that, they are part of the institution, they are part of one parent institution. It means that we can do more in terms of making those connections and enriching both our programs, because it means expertise from one place or another with the Zoom and all the rest of it. You can share teaching resources, and also open opportunities in their countries and with other countries in the region for graduates, for all the graduates. That networking and those connections are vital to building, which is what we started with, a sense of the Caribbean. I say that I came from Jamaica. Right? I'm Trinidadian, but I came right into my experience, my theatre experience with Jamaica, and it would have been different if I was not there. So Trinidad was enriched in the program by my experience in Jamaica, right? And I'm saying that is where we have to go, all right? Keep those connections and build them critically so. And there's a political statement as well at this point in time. Because the university is for heaven's sake, right? It's a quiet, almost meek institution, right? In terms of what is happening now. It's almost silent as an institution. Okay, it's silent, but do the work. And the work is about making the Caribbean, unifying the Caribbean, helping it to realize, which is the motto of the university, realizing the potential, unlocking the potential, you see, of the people of the region. Well, do the work. That's what it is. That's all I want to say.